Welcome to the Great Girlfriends podcast, where we discuss life, love, laughter, and everything in between. I'm your host, Sybil Amuti, and I can't wait for you to hear all of the Great Girlfriend magic on today's show. So without further ado, grab something great to drink, grab your pen and your paper, and get ready for this week's episode. Happy Wednesday, great girlfriends. I am super excited to be in your ear another week. We are right in the thick of fall, and I'm feeling really good about the weather here in LA. I hear that it's getting nice and chilly in New York. I feel like it's getting chilly in Chicago. And so all over the US and around the world, I just want to salute you and thank you for listening in this week. I know you've probably gone through our How She Did It series and listened to a number of experts talk about their personal success stories of overcoming different tragedies or setbacks, even generational curses from one guest, building a real estate business, and so forth on the recent episodes of the podcast. Now I want to get into a little conversation about leadership and resilience in today's world. And I think this conversation for the modern woman is so important because life is life. And we are navigating so many different new norms that we're having to adapt to. Our world is changing, our economy is evolving rapidly. I don't know what direction I should say it's going in. I want to say it's looking bright because I trust God. I'm looking at a reality and I'm like, ah. But anyway, so there's a lot of shifts and turns, and we're also in, election season, which makes us all very sensitive to the climate that we're in. So there's so many choices that we're making as women, professionally and personally, and that bridge is what I want to talk about today. So I have a guest who I know you'll love because my pre-conversation just got my heart all warm and fuzzy and excited to connect with her. Lani Phillips, how are you
I
today?
am so good. Thanks for having me on, Sybil.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure. Lani has an amazing bio, great girlfriends. I read her bio and I felt like my muscles just grew. I was like, oh my gosh, this woman is strong and mighty and powerful and driven. And so, as an award-winning leader, digital talk show host, and seasoned female executive, Lani spent over 25 years in leadership, senior leadership, executive roles at Microsoft Corporation. And now she's in a brand new chapter going next level, embarking on her new consultancy, which is Full Circle Leadership Group. And I love this because we're talking about leadership today, but Lani is bringing her lifetime of leadership and experience in driving leaders forward to the world and making it accessible to all of us. Lani, leadership doesn't come without struggle. I know it doesn't.
It's mired with struggles.
It's mired with struggle, but isn't it worth it to know that the things you work through are continuing to create pathways and build bridges and put some footprints in the sand for the next generation of leaders?
Yes, I think that is so important. I think today what I was learning as I was in corporate America is we were starting to dial back on the investment in
Mm,
leadership. So
mm,
people were kind of left to their own devices if they
mm.
wanted to invest in their own leadership development, or companies would pick, a more generic training that they would roll out to everyone. And we all know that we're all different. So you kind of have to meet people where they're at. And
Yeah.
then you have to help them understand where you want them to go. So I do think it is important right now for us to really think about modern leadership and what does that look like as we start to think about the modern workplace and the new challenges that we're faced with in so many different generations in the workplace. So I
Mm.
decided to stand at that intersection and see how I could be a solution to that problem.
I love that. So when you talk about the modern workplace, I think
Yeah.
about it's so simple and yet so complex, right? Because I remember a time, once upon a time, you went to college, you got your degree, you chose a career path, you went to
Right.
the office every day, you had a pipeline, you could kind of see a path in your career within one company, and you were able to do that for
I
25 years
was.
inside of an organization.
I was.
And in this world that we're in now, if you do a year, you're doing good.
Mhm.
If you're working from, hybrid, you're working around the world, you find yourself traveling maybe 40% of the year, some of us,
Right.
because you are attending to clients across the globe, wherever they may be. Um, the structure looks different. The
It
placement of
does.
women looks different. The expectations are different. It's supposed to be better, yet there are more aggressive demands and expectations if you intend to grow within an organization. So, how do we as women take on leadership today in this modern workplace? And how do we show up very authentically so that we are not trying to become someone else? Do we code switch, Lani? I don't know. I want to hear what you have to say about that. But what is
Mhm.
it that we need to do to ensure we have a position as stakeholders in the workplace, modern workplace?
Yeah, well, when you think about this modern workplace that we have today, I think you also have to think about the fact that it just looks different today. So
Yeah.
you should feel comfortable walking in every environment, just being yourself.
Hmm.
Take it from somebody who worked for a male-dominated, high-tech environment who felt like I needed to mirror what my male colleagues were doing to be successful. And I didn't really see my career take off until I started settling into who I was, which
Mm,
is really tapping into the ability to connect with
yeah.
people. And that emotional intelligence is something that tends to come more natural for women that they really need to lean into because that is a core competency that companies do value. I do think every environment is different though. So you asked a question around code switching. At some point, you do have to code switch
Mm,
because every company has a culture that they respect. So you have to learn how to adapt to the environment you're in. I'm not asking you to change who you are, your values, your belief systems, or any of that. But you do want to make sure when you step into these boardrooms or you are presenting in front of your new set of customers or a group of colleagues, you want them to be able to hear you. And sometimes that means we have to code switch a little bit so that people can see us and hear what we have to say. But I am not saying code switch to a point where you feel like you've lost yourself, because I would probably tell you that's not an environment that values who you are, and you should be looking for something else. The
mhm.
other thing I'd say in this modern workplace is I feel like loyalty is no longer respected.
Come on.
So where people feel like they have to be there forever and stick with these companies for 10 and 20 years, I would not counsel anyone to do that anymore. I
Mm,
would get really clear on what are some of those career goals that you have for yourself. What are some of those career experiences that you want to have? And make sure as you're looking at opportunities, look at the experiences you're going to gain, but also look at what you can contribute,
mhm.
right? And do it for a couple of years with the understanding that you're seeking some level of mastery so you can move on. But
Mhm.
companies respect results.
Right.
So you cannot lose sight of that. But as women leaders, and one of the things we teach in my company is I believe you can maximize human potential while also getting results as a leader. And I think you should do those together. And the leaders that figure out that formula, those are the leaders that I think will be wildly successful, and we'll start to see them climb on the leadership ranks within these companies.
Mm. So let me get back to what you said when you said you made a shift in your positioning where you began to embrace who you were and operate
Mhm.
more from a more honest and I guess a more
Authentic.
yeah, more authentic space. What turned on for you, or what was a moment that made you realize that I got this all wrong, Lani? Lani, you're better as you.
It was a couple of things. One, I had a situation with an employee where I just got tired. I got tired of feeling frustrated. I wasn't getting anywhere with this male employee because nothing I tried, he just didn't like me for whatever reason.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I kept saying, well, why is it he doesn't like me? And then I was like, well, I wouldn't even like me because I don't even know who I am anymore. Because
Mm.
I'm in this environment and I'm so focused on trying to drive for results that I've forgotten the core principle that I always lead by, and it's people first.
Mm-hmm.
and meet people where they're at. And I think it was through that situation that I woke up and realized, I need to quit trying to be everyone else and just settle into who I am. What are
Yeah.
my strengths? How do I lead with my strengths and recognize that I have areas for development just like the next person, but
Mm-hmm.
I can leverage my team for those areas for development because no one's expecting me to know it all. But what happens when you're one of few minorities in leadership, you're just trying to fit in. And
Mm-hmm.
so you start to mirror the leaders that you work for because you're wanting to be accepted. And I fell into that trap. And I think I just got tired of managing multiple identities and said, I'm not getting anywhere with it anyway. And I did have a mentor tell me once, if you settle into who you are, you might find leaning on your strengths will become towering strengths from you and will allow you to excel past everyone else. And that's exactly what started to happen when I leaned into my
Wow.
strengths.
So when you lean into your strengths, Lonnie, were you in a space where you communicated it in action as far as, how you showed up in rooms, how you presented your communications? What changed in you that people began to see and accept?
I became more vocal around how I made decisions.
Ah, okay.
I also began to challenge the people in the room who were not thinking about the people first.
Mm-hmm.
So I began to ask questions to challenge the values that was driving some of the decision making. We
Mm-hmm.
had conversations where we would call them people discussions,
Mm-hmm.
where we would sit in a room as senior leaders and we would talk about the talent. We talk about where they've done well, we talk about where they have challenges. But one of the things I noticed is one negative thing mentioned in that room could really tarnish a person's reputation and people would treat them differently. And I recognized that I had a responsibility sitting at that table to make sure that I let my voice be heard. So I
Mm-hmm.
started using my voice more positively on behalf of the people within the organization. If I had an encounter with an employee that I thought was positive, whether we had a one on one or I had an opportunity to observe them with a customer or a partner, I would share that experience openly with the group to help balance the feedback that was being shared at the table. If I saw where I felt like people were being extremely negative on an individual, I would pause and say, well, what are those areas you think are strengths for them so that we can make sure that we have them in the right role?
Mm-hmm.
So I just began to use my voice. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't anything that I had to go out there and paint this new narrative and say, okay, now I need you to look at me a different way. I just start behaving different.
Mm-hmm. That's so important, Lonnie, because so many people, when they enact change, they want to come violently. You know,
Yes.
I'm
Look at
new, I've
me,
changed.
I've
Look at
changed.
honey, like so much to the point that it's hard for people to receive
Yeah.
because and so I think it's important for women to understand that there's a finesse to shifting and making transitions and learning how to finesse and nuance in a very
Mhm.
natural and organic way makes room for your change. People
Mhm.
aren't going to resist. They're going to say, tell me more. I want to know more. I want to know more about what Lonnie has to say because
Mhm.
she's brought her voice to the table in such a strong and competent way and honest way that
Mhm.
that it belongs and she's not beating us up. She's just enhancing conversation. So there's ways to finesse and nuance, great girlfriends, where you're not beating doors down, punching people.
No, you
It's
got to
saying,
be careful about that.
yes, yes, yeah, because you don't want to grab a narrative that you don't deserve, just because you didn't know how to use finesse to kind of
Oh, yeah, because they're quick. We're aggressive.
come on.
Already will say that we're angry.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we have to monitor
Yeah.
and finesse how we communicate.
Yeah.
And for those that are challenged in that area, I would say find someone that you value, where you can say, you know what, I really like how you show up in the environment. I'd love to use you as a sounding board. I
Hmm.
need to communicate this message. Let me try it on with you. Let's do a dry run with one. And I
Yeah.
love to do dry runs with people to say, let's walk through the best case scenario. Let's walk through the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And then it's my job to give them constructive feedback because we all do something right. And
Mhm.
then let's give them some constructive feedback to help make it even better. But
Mhm.
I would say find someone to use as a sounding board, especially if you know that you have to communicate a tough message that could be perceived as negative.
Absolutely. So good. I want to talk to you a bit about the resilience that comes along with us standing as leaders because um, I feel and see and experience people who are heavy on the quit bone. They heavy on the quit. Whatever the quit button is on the laptop, they're like, I'm pressing the I quit. I quit. I'm not doing this. I can't take this. It's gotten too hard for 2 days and I don't want to do too hard, too long.
Mhm.
I want to go soft. I'm in my soft era. These are narratives that come up at high frequency, Lani. And you see this on social and you even hear a lot of conversations about millennials and their inability to sustain jobs because they quit so soon, so early. I even have had my own experience with people who can't weather, whew,
I know so well.
don't
Just
have what
walk
it
through
takes.
this one.
Yeah, and I just am like, well, if you can't take this, you're definitely not going to take the next thing that's coming your way.
Oh, no,
So,
no.
so there, I don't dare I say, what I hear. I won't say I said it, but I will say that I hear people saying this is a softer generation, right? And this is a softer workforce, and this workforce is less resilient, and retention is hard. And so, I know post-COVID, people made a lot of new choices around what they would and would not tolerate at work because
Absolutely.
people begin to prioritize differently. How do you show up resilient in a workspace without compromising the depth of who you are? Because
Absolutely.
you want 25 years in a place where you can love what you do and be
Yeah.
happy and excited about what you do. All 25 years are not going to be amazing years. There's going to be some rugged.
Trust me, they weren't. And I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, and
They
so
were
for a
not.
woman who wants to have the 20, there are some people who really do want to do 2 years here, 2 years. They want to, and that is their prerogative. But for the woman who wants to have that longevity and inside an organization and grow there and nestle there, what does resilience look like?
Let's just pause for a second and take a deep breath because I don't want to ever send the message to anyone that my 25 years at this company was easy
Yeah. Yeah.
because it was really tough some years. And
Yes.
I will tell anyone who wants to have longevity in their career, let alone at one company, you're going to have to build skills around resiliency, period. I would say the first thing you really have to do is you really got to figure out how do I deal with my feelings? Because when someone introduces change, when your job position maybe you get laid off or you get a different set of responsibilities or responsibilities are taken from you or heck, you find out you're going through a divorce while you're trying to be successful at work or you have a sick parent while you're at work and you're trying to navigate it all and you know your time is divided. I
Mhm.
think it's so important to get really clear in terms of how you're feeling and really pause to understand, all right, what's going on with me and what do I need? Sometimes we need a soft place to fall just so we can talk to someone to help us just to kind of pick ourselves back up again. Sometimes we recognize we're scratching at trauma because I've been laid off multiple times and now anger is starting to build up in me and we may need to seek some therapy,
Yeah.
some real formal therapy.
Mhm.
But I do think it's important for you to just assess those feelings. And then I think you've got to just be able to say, all right, who's my tribe? Who are the people, mentors, people in your life that you lean on when things get tough that you know will be truth tellers? One, they're going to be truth tellers and they will support you and give you a soft place to fall, but they don't let you have a pity party too long because they recognize that you need to get a game plan so you can pick yourself back up and keep moving. And
Mhm.
so, But you do need to find that tribe and that group of people that you can lean on to support you when you're going through something difficult. So you have a soft place to fall, but also help you start to establish what that game plan needs to look like. What's next? What are you going to do? What are some soft goals you're going to set for yourself? Because I just talked to a client just on Friday where they found out their whole role was changing. She was frustrated and very angry about it. But I also asked her, because I've known her for a while, I said, what is this moment here to teach you?
Very
And
good
one of the
question.
things it was there to teach her is she needed to figure out how to push through difficulty instead of run away from it. And she
Mm-hmm.
was a millennial.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I told her, I said, if you want, you can always go jump outside the company and go find another job. But this situation that you're in will be presented to you in another
Yes.
scenario somewhere else because you
Yes.
refuse to deal with it.
Yes. You have to learn the lesson.
You have to learn the lesson. And I said, and what that means is based on your next move, you have to be willing to commit. I need to hear you say you will commit anywhere from 12 to 18 months
Mm-hmm.
because you understand you're there to learn something and get something from this experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so we literally started talking about what that might look like for her, and then what goals could she set for herself to use it as a springboard to move on. But I think anytime you're trying to build resilience is when you're going through that difficulty, understand what it's there to teach you and have those truth tellers around you that will support you and say, you know what? I hear what you think it's here to teach you, but I think you might want to consider this is what it's here to teach you
Mm-hmm.
because you never know. It's different for every person.
Right.
Some people do have the ability to hang in there and they're too loyal
Yeah. Yeah.
and they haven't bet on themselves
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they need a little help to kick them out the nest so
Right.
they could be willing to try something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were made to feel uncomfortable because what it was there to teach them is that they have more to give and more to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they have to trust themselves to be able to go do that.
Mm-hmm.
Some people just run from everything and they need to slow down and build some new skills and new muscle to get them through difficulty. But
Yeah.
that's what resiliency is all about. It's about really understanding how to recover quickly when you are faced with adversity.
So let me ask you this, Lani. How do you, for the great girlfriend who is working towards being more resilient at work and in life, because it's
In
not just
life,
about
yeah.
work. How you show up here is how you show up there. It's how you show up everywhere.
It's all intertwined
It's
anyway,
all
right?
intertwined. But how do you know your tolerables and intolerables? How do you know
Mm.
when you have, yeah, right? Because there are some things that are tolerable for one that may not be for the other. There are some things that you can weather through that will get you to the next stage, and there's some things that you should never tolerate. But how do you define your own list of tolerables and intolerables?
What a powerful question that is, because you're right. It will differ depend on individual. I remember at one time I was mentoring a young lady who was dealing with a disrespectful boss.
Mm-hmm.
And she felt like her boss made her feel less than. She could do nothing right.
Mm-hmm.
She felt like she was always looking for something wrong and never shared anything positive. So she had only been in the role a short period of time and was ready to jump
Mm-hmm.
in that situation because it did not bring out the best in her. It was intolerable.
Mm-hmm.
She decided she wanted to move on.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to support her through that because she knew who she was and what she could not handle.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to give her some strategies to navigate the difficult leader, but she knew that that was her bottom line. She couldn't handle it because it was total disrespect. I would say each person has to determine what they can handle and what they can't. I would hope that list of things you can handle is smaller than the list of the things you can.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no such thing as a perfect environment, no matter where you work.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to be willing to tolerate something.
Mm-hmm.
And I also believe there are powerful conversations that can be had with the people you work with to create a more positive environment.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're doing it unconsciously. So you should also think about how can you help support the environment you're in to help create a better environment to bring out the best in everyone. And that's what I'm trying to do, create more leaders that bring out the best in their people versus the worst in their people.
Mm-hmm.
Did
Mm-hmm.
I answer your question there?
Yeah, yeah. I think what you pointed back to was that internal sense of knowing and understanding when you've reached a point that feels like a break. I mean, and I think that we've all reached a break that didn't break us, but we felt it would have broken us.
Absolutely. Well, we feel like it will take us outside ourselves, and then we want to
Absolutely.
start behaving like the person we don't want people to know that we
That
really are.
recovery is too that road is a long road, and
Mhm, mhm.
recovery and just but I do think one thing that you said is important that I hope great girlfriends grabbed onto is to have in mind intolerables, have in mind things that you stand for and that you won't stand for. Because you might find that some situations cause for you to fight for freedom, not just for yourself, but for someone else. And,
Absolutely.
right? And some situations cause you to be the peacemaker, or some situations cause you to really take a look at how you resolve conflict,
Hmm.
or even how you use your voice, advocacy. So there's so many different ways that our standards show up in our daily choices. But I do think you need to have a sense of knowing
You
um,
do.
how you show up. I will say, I've noticed about myself that when there's heavy chaos between people, I don't jump in.
Mm,
I never pursue chaos unless I can bring
mhm,
peace.
mm.
I don't want to add more chaos to anybody's chaos. It's not my DNA. It's not my intention. My intention is to be a problem solver. And I know that I'm a problem solver. So
Mhm.
if I can't solve the problem that's in front of me, I'm looking for the next problem solver. Who can help me help them help this? Because but that's something that I stand for. I
Absolutely.
know that I'm meant to be a solution and it's something that I'm committed to. And if it's not me, who is the best solution for this scenario? But what I won't do is contribute to chaos. I won't do it. I won't do it. I won't stick around for it. I'm going to find a firefighter to put the fire out. And I know that about me. And there are some people that come in and spark the fire and make it bigger. They make a flame out of it. And that's who they are meant to be because maybe that big flame is meant to cause, is meant to bring a larger issue to the forefront. There's different ways that we have to show up. And I think it's important we know who we are and how much of who we are can be good and how much cannot be so healthy in certain in certain scenarios.
Yeah, so I'm much like you. I'm a problem solver.
Yeah.
But I also think you have to be cautious because I've had those leaders within my organization that when they see chaos or conflict
Mhm.
between two employees, they choose to sit back and let them resolve it on their own. And it's
Mm.
because they are conflict avoidant.
No, no, no. Yeah.
And I am not that person
Uh-uh.
because I do strive to get to a resolution.
Hmm.
And I do strive to make sure that we work through the difficulty because
Yeah.
I have seen growth and peace and acceptance and win-wins come out of difficult conversations when managed respectfully.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I don't run from difficult
Yeah.
conversations, but I do want to broker peace and broker understanding
That's
so
important.
that we can solve a problem. And there are some people who know about themselves that they don't want to be a part of conflict because they want to avoid it. And
Mm.
I am somebody who feels like, no, let's not avoid it, but
Yeah,
let's just be mindful and respectful of our language
that's right.
and how we are communicating, meaning really listen to one another and
Hmm.
validate your understanding before you seek. It's like seek first to understand before
Yeah.
being understood.
Hmm.
And then let's figure out how together we can get to the other side. And hopefully there will be growth and a win-win that could come out of it. Sometimes you don't necessarily have a win-win, but if you end up in a win-lose, you'll feel more comfortable in that scenario
Right.
if you have been respectful of one another.
Right. So now you're tapping into psychological safety and
Yeah, yeah,
what
it's a
that
big.
looks like. Yeah, to have a space where you can feel safe to learn in those moments and create a space where you can even create a table around conflict because we don't need to run. You do need to start to have dialogue, more dialogue, the better. What
Mhm.
is a tip that you would give to a great girlfriend who's listening, who's struggling with psychological safety, even curating it or even receiving it in her workplace or even in her, I would say in her personal life as well, because I do think they mirror. I really do truly believe they
They
mirror.
do. I would say anyone looking to curate it, which is going to be the solution for the person who's seeking it within their organization, I always tell people to start by just doing it yourself.
Yeah.
I will share a situation that happened for me inside my corporate workspace that transcended past corporate and ended into my personal workspace during the George Floyd situation.
Mhm.
At that time, I went to work, and a lot of people were doing their one on ones with me virtually. And there were a lot of white females and white males sharing the concerns their children were having. And I had this one woman, white woman, I was speaking with who literally was crying because her daughter wanted to go and protest. She lived in Minneapolis and wanted to be a part of the protest, and she was scared. And
Mhm.
she was sharing her feelings. And I felt like here I am, a senior leader in this company. Obviously, this is on everyone's mind. What are we going to do about it? And I spoke to a lot of senior leaders, including my HR business partners, and I said, what we're going to do, I said, I want to do something. And they were like, well, what are you thinking about doing? I said, I just want to host a town hall where I can create a safe space for people to share their feelings and ask questions. I didn't know what I was doing. All I wanted to do was to be a part of a solution during a very difficult time that obviously was on people's mind, and ignoring it was not the answer. So I
Exactly.
hosted a town hall. I opened it up sharing how I was feeling and that I had received a few calls and how other people were feeling. And I just wanted to create a safe space for people to share their feelings. And maybe some of you have questions. What was born out of that safe environment, I told them what the ground rules were, no judgment zone, blah, blah, blah. It rolled into weeks and weeks of multiple conversations where
Wow.
people just started removing the layers of how they were feeling, and
Mm.
tears start to flowing. And
Hmm.
just, I felt like a community started to come together, and we started building bridges
Mm.
just by creating that safe space. So that's what I would offer to anyone. You can create that safe space if you don't have it in your environment by starting with one person and being a safe space for them, and then having them pay it forward or enlarge the group as you go on. Do it around specific issues in the organization or challenges within the business that you want to solve.
Mhm.
But anyone can create those environments where you just create a conference call that people can dial into. You tell them what your intention is, you tell them what the ground rules are, and you just sit there and you just listen. And then when you get feedback, share resources with them, deal with raising issues, maybe implement some of the ideas. I just tell everybody, if you don't have it, you can start it. And as leaders, we just need to practice it with each employee, trying to create that space where they feel seen, where they feel heard, and more importantly, we need them all to feel valued.
Mm.
But we
Yeah.
all can do that.
Hmm. I
Did
love.
I help you there on that
Yeah,
one?
absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's so important because that's choice by choice, moment by moment. And I will say this world has an open invitation, great girlfriends, for each one of us to practice and cultivate that safe space and be the safe space that we would want to have everywhere we go, honestly, even especially as parents and as women and as sisters and friends and all the titles that we carry.
Mhm.
That we have that ability to do so. Lonnie, that was really great. Thank you. Thank you
You're
so.
welcome.
I won't hold you because I know as the titles roll throughout the day, we have many responsibilities that call us.
We do.
We have many responsibilities. Where can the great girlfriends keep up with you and learn more about your programming?
Yeah, so you can always catch me on any social platform at Miss Lani Phillips. I also, they could go to laniphillips.com to hear about everything that I'm involved in. And then I also have fullcircleleadershipgroup.com, but laniphillips.com will route you there as well.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Thank you so much. This was such a wonderful conversation, and I
Yeah,
appreciate
enjoyed it.
and value everything that you brought to the show today. And it's just been
Thank,
so great to have this time with you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to meet you, spend this time with you, and I hope there was something I said that someone could hang on to. And if anybody wants to follow up on anything I said, just give me a DM or send me an email in LinkedIn, and I'll be glad to follow up.
All right, great girlfriends, did you enjoy this week's episode of the podcast? If so, would you please give us your amazing review on iTunes? Every single review helps another great girlfriend get plugged into the podcast and the community. Speaking of community, make sure you join our Facebook group at The Great Girlfriends, follow us on Instagram at The Great Girlfriends, and on Twitter at _great GFS. I'm Sibylla Muti, and I'm out.